The massive alien ship hung in Earth's orbit like a shimmering crystal, its surface reflecting the sun's rays in patterns that made human scientists scratch their heads in wonder. Inside the vessel, the members of the Galactic Council stood around their viewing screens, their tall, crystalline bodies glowing with a mix of curiosity and concern as they watched the events unfold on the planet below. For over 200 years, they had watched humanity from afar. At first, humans were just another primitive species, burning coal and fighting wars with simple weapons. But then something happened that made the Council take notice. Humans began to advance at an incredible speed. Where other species took thousands of years to develop new technologies, humans did it in decades. "They're doing it again," said one of the council members, pointing at a screen showing the human space station. "Look at how they work in space without fear. No safety ropes, just those simple suits." The council member was watching a human repair crew fixing a broken panel on the International Space Station. While any sensible alien species would have used robots for such dangerous work, humans chose to do it themselves. They floated in the emptiness of space, protected only by thin layers of material, yet they worked with steady hands and calm minds. Their response to the asteroid is even more surprising, another council member added, switching the view to a massive rock hurling through space toward Earth. The asteroid was big enough to destroy a small country, and it was exactly why the Council had chosen this moment to make contact. They had expected panic, chaos, and a plea for help when they revealed themselves. Instead, they got something completely different. On Earth, in a hidden military base deep under the Rocky Mountains, military leaders from different countries sat together, planning not how to run away, but how to fight back. Engineers worked day and night, building rockets bigger than anything they had made before. They weren't trying to escape. They were planning to blow up the asteroid. "Impossible," one of the alien observers said. "Their technology isn't advanced enough. They'll fail." But the Council's oldest member, who had watched humanity the longest, wasn't so sure. "Have you noticed?" it said, "that humans tend to do their best work when we think they're about to fail." The humans proved this point just 3 days later. They launched their rockets, not one but 3, each carrying powerful nuclear devices. The plan itself made the aliens nervous. It seemed too simple, too risky, too human. But as they watched, the rockets flew perfectly, splitting the asteroid into pieces small enough to burn up in Earth's atmosphere. What impressed the Council even more was what happened next. Instead of celebrating their victory, humans immediately started planning for the next possible threat. They began building better detection systems and more powerful rockets. They didn't wait for danger to find them. They prepared to face it head-on. "The time has come," the council leader announced. "We must make contact." They've proven themselves worthy, not because they succeeded, but because they weren't afraid to try. As the alien ship moved closer to Earth, making itself visible to human radar systems, the Council watched how military bases around the world went on high alert. But again, humans surprised them. Instead of launching attacks, they sent out a simple radio message. "Welcome to Earth. We come in peace and hope you do too. If not, we're ready either way." The Council members looked at each other, some amused, others worried. This was why humans were different. They weren't the strongest species, or the most advanced, or even the smartest. But they had something that made them special. They faced the unknown with a mix of hope and determination. They were ready to make friends, but they were also ready to fight if they had to. As the ship descended toward the designated meeting point, the Council members agreed on one thing. The galaxy was about to change. Humanity was about to step onto a much larger stage, and based on what they had seen, humans would change the galaxy just as much as the galaxy would change them. The meeting room inside the United Nations building was unlike anything anyone had seen before. The aliens had brought their own atmosphere and glowing bubbles around them, making them look like walking diamonds inside soap bubbles. Across the table sat James Walker, a former military commander chosen to represent Earth. He wasn't the most powerful or the richest person, but he had something the world needed right now: the ability to stay calm in strange situations. "Your species interests us," the lead alien said, its voice coming through a translator that made it sound like wind chimes in a storm. "You faced the asteroid like no other species would have." Walker sat straight in his chair, his gray hair and weathered face showing years of experience. "We do what needs to be done," he said simply. The other humans in the room, military leaders, scientists, and government officials, nodded in agreement. The alien council members looked at each other, their crystal bodies glowing with different colors that seemed to show their emotions. The lead alien's color turned a deep blue, what the humans would later learn meant serious concern. "We did not come just to make friends," it said. "We came to warn you. There is a threat in this galaxy that makes your asteroid look like a small rock. We call them the Void Swarm." The room grew quiet. On the large screen behind the aliens, images began to appear. They showed massive black ships that looked like giant insects, moving in groups of thousands. The aliens explained how these ships worked together like a giant hive of space bees, but instead of making honey, they destroyed everything in their path. "They have already eaten 15 galaxy arms," another alien said. "They'd break down everything: planets, stars, even the space between them. They turn it all into more of themselves." The humans watched as videos showed entire solar systems disappearing into what looked like a cloud of dark dust. Walker leaned forward, his eyes never leaving the screen. "How do other species fight them?" he asked. The aliens' colors shifted to something like gray. "They don't," the leader said. "Most hide in the spaces between galaxy arms. Some try to make peace by giving up their outer worlds. A few try to run to other galaxies." Walker stood up suddenly, making some of the aliens jump back. "Run. Hide." He shook his head. "That's not how we do things here." "You don't understand," one of the aliens said, its voice urgent. "Their smallest ships are bigger than your largest cities. They have weapons that can turn planets to dust. They can't be reasoned with. They can't be scared. They can't be stopped." Walker walked to the window, looking out at New York City below. People were going about their daily lives, not knowing that their whole world might be about to change. He turned back to the aliens. "Let me tell you something about humans," he said. "Throughout our history, people have always told us what we can't do. They said we couldn't fly. They said we couldn't go to space. They said we couldn't split the atom. They said we couldn't stop that asteroid. But we did all of those things." The aliens' colors swirled with confusion. The lead alien spoke again. "But the Void Swarm has never been defeated. Never even slowed down. They have destroyed civilizations far more advanced than yours." Walker smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. It was the kind of smile that showed teeth, the kind that ancient humans might have made before hunting dangerous animals. "Those civilizations weren't human," he said. "We have something they don't." "Advanced weapons?" an alien asked. "No," Walker said. "We have the one thing the swarm has never faced, the absolute refusal to give up. You say they can't be scared. Good. Neither can we. You say they can't be reasoned with. Fine. We'll speak in a language they do understand." The aliens watched as the other humans in the room began to nod, their faces showing the same determination as Walker's. They had expected the humans to react with fear when they learned about the Void Swarm. Instead, they saw something that worried them even more. They saw humans getting ready for a fight. The lead alien's color turned to a shade they had never seen before. Later, they would create a new word for this color. It meant the fear of watching humans prepare for war. 3 months after the warning, Earth had changed more than anyone thought possible. The aliens had shared their technology with humans, expecting them to take years to understand it. Instead, humans not only understood it but started improving it in ways that made the aliens nervous. In a massive underground facility in the Nevada desert, Walker stood watching hundreds of workers building something new. The aliens called it a space shield, a device that was supposed to protect ships from enemy attacks. But humans had other ideas. "We turned their shield into a battering ram," one of the engineers explained to Walker, pointing at the modified device. "When they power up their weapons, we'll power up this shield and ram straight through their ships." The engineer grinned. "They won't expect that." The aliens who were watching turned pale, their crystal bodies almost white with shock. One of them spoke up. "That's not what the technology is for. It's meant to protect, to defend." Walker turned to the alien observer. "Sometimes the best defense is a good offense," he said. "You've been fighting the swarm for centuries your way. Now it's time to try our way." In another part of the facility, workers were building what they called boarding pods. The aliens had said it was impossible to board swarm ships. The spaces between ships were too dangerous, the speeds too high. Humans took this as a challenge, not a warning. "The pods are small, fast, and tough," a military scientist explained, patting the side of a pod that looked like a cross between a bullet and a spacecraft. "When we get close enough, these babies will shoot out like bullets, cut through their hull, and deliver our soldiers right into their ships." But that's suicide." An alien protested. "The forces involved would kill any living thing." The scientist shook her head and pressed a button. A screen lit up showing test results. "That's why we developed these," she said, pointing to new combat suits that looked like something from a science fiction movie. "They can handle forces that would normally turn a person to jelly. We tested them. They work." All around the world, similar preparations were taking place. In Brazil, they were building faster engines than anything the galaxy had seen before. In Japan, they had developed new weapons that could work in close combat, because humans had decided that if you couldn't beat the swarm from far away, you had to get up close and personal. The aliens watched all of this with growing worry. One day, one of them finally asked Walker the question that had been bothering them all. "Why are you so eager to fight? Every other species tries to avoid conflict with the swarm." Walker stopped walking and looked at the alien seriously. "Let me tell you a story," he said. "Long ago on Earth, there were people who faced dangers every day. Storms, wild animals, other humans. The ones who survived weren't always the strongest. They were the ones who refused to back down, who found new ways to fight, who worked together. That's in our blood now." He pointed to a group of young soldiers practicing with new weapons. "Look at them. They're scared. Anyone would be. But they're here anyway. That's what humans do. We take our fear and we use it to make ourselves stronger." The alien was quiet for a moment, watching the training. "The swarm has never faced an enemy like you," it finally said. Walker smiled. "No," he agreed. "They haven't. And that's our advantage. They expect everyone to run or hide. We won't do either. We're going to stand and fight, and we're going to do it in ways they've never seen before." As the day ended, Walker stood on a platform overlooking the massive facility. Below him, humans worked day and night, building, testing, preparing. The aliens had given them 1 year before the swarm would reach their part of the galaxy. Humans had decided to be ready in 6 months. Looking at the determination on every face, Walker felt proud. The aliens had warned them about an unstoppable enemy, but they had forgotten one thing. Humans had a long history of doing the impossible. The swarm was about to learn this the hard way. The warning came at midnight Earth time. The void swarm had appeared near Jupiter, 6 months earlier than expected. They weren't the main fleet, just a scout force of 30 ships, each one the size of a small moon. But for humanity's first real space battle, it was more than enough. Walker stood on the bridge of the Earth ship Thunder, leading a fleet of 20 human vessels. Each ship carried the new weapons and technologies they had built, untested in real combat until now. The alien observers watched from their own ship, safely distant from the coming battle. "Enemy ships detected," the radar operator announced, her voice steady despite the tension. They're moving toward Jupiter's moons. Looks like they're starting to break them down for resources. Walker nodded. This was exactly what the aliens had warned them about. The swarm's habit of eating everything in their path to make more of themselves. But today, their meal was going to fight back. All ships, battle formation, Walker commanded. On the main screen, he watched as human ships moved into position. The aliens had taught them the safe way to fight: stay far back, use long-range weapons, and retreat if the enemy got too close. Humanity had different plans. All ships, power up ram shields, Walker ordered. Activate close combat systems. Prepare boarding pods. He paused, looking at his crew. Every face showed the same mix of fear and determination. Remember your training. Remember what we're fighting for. And remember, humans don't run. The swarm noticed them then. Their massive black ships turned, their surfaces rippling like dark water. The aliens watching from afar expected them to attack immediately. Instead, the swarm seemed to pause, as if confused by ships so small daring to approach them. They're scanning us, the science officer reported. Their weapons are powering up. Walker smiled. Good. That means they're paying attention. All ships, charge. The alien observers nearly fainted when they saw what happened next. Instead of spreading out and fighting from a distance, the human fleet accelerated directly toward the swarm ships. The swarm, used to enemies who tried to stay away, seemed stunned by this behavior. The first shots from the swarm missed completely. They had aimed where they expected the human ships to be, not where they actually went. The human ships, moving faster than anything the swarm had encountered before, slipped through their defensive fire like water through a net. First wave of boarding pods, Lion Chief. Walker commanded. Hundreds of small bullet-shaped pods shot out from the human ships. The swarm, never having faced such weapons before, didn't even try to stop them. The pods slammed into the huge black ships, cutting through their hulls like hot knives through butter. Sir, the communications officer shouted, excitement in her voice. Reports coming in from the boarding teams. They're inside. The swarm. They have no internal defenses. They never expected anyone to get inside their ships. The alien observers watched in amazement as small groups of humans, wearing their new combat suits, fought their way through the swarm ships. The swarm drones, deadly in space combat, were not designed to fight enemies inside their own vessels. Rammed shields at full power, Walker announced. All ships, pick your targets. Let's show them how humans say hello. The human ships slammed into the swarm vessels, their modified shields cutting huge gashes in the enemy ships. Inside, the boarding teams were destroying everything they could find. The swarm, for the first time in their history, began to show signs of panic. Sir, the swarm ships, they're retreating. The bridge crew cheered as the massive black ships turned and fled, leaving behind 3 of their destroyed companions. The battle had lasted less than an hour, and humanity had just done what no other species had managed. They had made the swarm run away. On the alien observation ship, the council members watched in stunned silence. Finally, one spoke. They actually did it. They attacked the unbeatable enemy. And won. No, another alien corrected, its color showing both fear and respect. They didn't just win. They changed the rules of the game. And this was just the beginning. News of humanity's victory spread through the galaxy faster than light. While the aliens had expected the battle to end in human defeat, they now faced an unexpected truth. The swarm could be beaten. More importantly, the humans were teaching them how. 2 weeks after the Jupiter battle, Walker stood in a huge meeting room on the alien homeworld. Representatives from 50 different species had gathered to learn about human battle tactics. The room buzzed with voices speaking 100 different languages. Show us again, a tall, tree-like alien asked. How did your ships get so close to the swarm? Walker pointed to a hologram showing the battle. The key isn't the ships, he explained. It's the pilots. Every other species built bigger ships with better computers. We trained better pilots. Our people can react faster than any computer because we don't follow set patterns. We improvise. The aliens whispered among themselves. The idea of not following battle plans seemed crazy to them, but they couldn't argue with the results. But the boarding pods, another alien said, this one looking like a blue cloud. Our scientists say they should have killed everyone inside them. The forces are too strong. Walker smiled and waved at a soldier standing nearby. The young man stepped forward, wearing one of the new combat suits. "Hit me," Walker told him. The soldier nodded and punched Walker hard in the chest. The aliens gasped, but Walker didn't move an inch. "The suit absorbed the force," Walker explained, "just like it absorbs the force in the boarding pods. We studied how birds and fish move through air and water. Then we built suits that could do the same thing in space." The aliens were learning that humans had a different way of solving problems. Where aliens tried to build stronger shields, humans found ways to slip past them. Where aliens made better guns, humans got close enough that guns didn't matter. "There's more," Walker continued. He showed them videos from inside the swarm ships. "Look at how the swarm drones fight. They're strong, but they only know one way to attack. They can't adapt. But humans." He played a video of soldiers using their suits to bounce off walls, slide under drones, and fight in ways the swarm had never seen before. A small, glowing alien floated forward. "We have been fighting the swarm for 1,000 years, it said. "How did you find their weakness so quickly?" "Because we looked for it," Walker replied. "Every enemy has a weakness. The swarm's weakness is that they think they're perfect. They never had to adapt because no one ever fought them differently, until now." The room was quiet as everyone thought about this. Then one alien asked the question they were all thinking. "Will you teach us?" Walker stood straighter. "That's why we're here. The swarm is still coming. Not just a scout force this time, but their main fleet. We can't beat them alone. But together, if you're willing to learn new ways to fight." The aliens didn't even let him finish. They all stood up, their bodies glowing, shifting, or swaying in what humans would learn were signs of agreement. Species that had hidden from the swarm for generations were ready to fight back. Over the next few days, Walker and his team taught alien soldiers how to use modified versions of human combat suits. They showed alien pilots how to fly more aggressively. Most importantly, they taught them not to be afraid. "Fear is normal," Walker told a group of alien warriors. "But fear can make you stronger if you use it right. The swarm isn't scared because they've never lost. That makes them predictable. We're scared, but we fight anyway. That makes us dangerous." As Walker watched aliens learning to fight the human way, he felt proud. Humanity had done more than just win a battle. They had given hope to an entire galaxy. The swarm was still coming, bigger and stronger than ever. But now they would face something they had never seen before, a galaxy that wasn't afraid to fight back. In their massive ships at the edge of the galaxy, the swarm continued forward, not knowing that everything was about to change. They had spent thousands of years being the hunters. They were about to learn what it felt like to be hunted. The galaxy changed more in 3 months than it had in the last 1,000 years. Where once peaceful species had hidden from the swarm, now training centers appeared on hundreds of worlds. The humans had started something that couldn't be stopped, a revolution in how the galaxy fought back. Walker watched from the command center on Earth as reports came in from across space. On a world of water-breathing aliens, their warriors now wore modified human combat suits to fight in space. On a planet of flying creatures, they had taken human battle tactics and made them even better, using their natural ability to think in 3 dimensions. "Sir," a young officer called out, "you need to see this." She pointed to a screen showing an alien training session. The aliens, who looked like giant insects themselves, were practicing boarding techniques on a captured swarm ship. They moved differently than humans, but the spirit was the same: attack without fear. They learned fast, Walker said, smiling as he watched an alien warrior use its 6 arms to fight off multiple swarm drones in a practice match. The alien moved like a dancer, using every advantage it had. But the biggest change wasn't in how other species fought. It was in how they thought. The aliens had always seen the swarm as an unstoppable force of nature, like a hurricane or a black hole. Now they saw them differently, as enemies that could be beaten. "Look at this," another officer said, bringing up a new report. An alien species that had been hiding underground for centuries had just destroyed a swarm scout ship. They had used their natural ability to dig through rock to attack the ship from below, something the swarm never expected. Reports kept coming in. A species of small, quick aliens had learned to sneak into swarm ships through maintenance ports. Another species, made of living crystal, had found a way to confuse swarm sensors by reflecting their scan beams back at them. Every species brings something new to the fight, Walker explained to the alien council members who still watched Earth closely. Humans showed them it was possible to fight back, but they're finding their own ways to do it. The council members had changed too. Where once they had advised hiding and running, now they helped coordinate attacks and share information. They had learned perhaps the most important human lesson of all, that working together made everyone stronger. "The swarm is changing its patterns," a strategic officer reported one day. "They're becoming more cautious, more defensive." She showed Walker a map of recent swarm movements. Where once they had moved straight forward like an unstoppable wave, now they moved carefully, watching for attacks. "Good," Walker said. "That means they're learning to fear us." But not everything was easy. Some species still struggled to overcome centuries of hiding. Others found it hard to work together, especially with species they had once considered enemies. But when these problems came up, they looked to humanity for an example. "Your species fights itself all the time," an alien leader said to Walker during a difficult meeting. "You have different languages, different beliefs, different ways of life. But when the swarm came, you worked together." "How?" Walker thought about this. "Because we learned something important long ago," he said. "Our differences make us stronger, not weaker. Every different way of thinking brings new ideas, new solutions." This idea spread through the galaxy like wildfire. Species that had never talked to each other began working together. They shared technology, tactics, and troops. Each brought their own strengths to the fight. One day, Walker stood in front of a massive screen showing all the Allied forces. Ships of every size and shape, crews of every species, all training together, preparing together, ready to fight together. "The swarm thinks they're hunting us," he told his officers. "They don't realize we've turned the whole galaxy into hunters. Every planet they approach might have warriors waiting. Every asteroid could hide a strike team. Every piece of space they thought was empty could be filled with ships ready to attack." The revolution wasn't just in how they fought. It was in how they thought. The galaxy had woken up, and the swarm, for the first time in its long history, was about to face an enemy that was evolving faster than they were. The final battle began where no one expected it, deep inside swarm territory. The combined fleet of 50 alien species, led by human commanders, had done something the swarm thought impossible. They had found the swarm's home system. Walker stood on the bridge of the Thunder, now scared from dozens of battles, but still fighting. Around his ship, thousands of vessels from across the galaxy moved into position. Each one carried crews who had trained the human way, who had learned not to run, who had discovered their own strength. "The swarm is responding," his radar officer reported. 10,000 ships, maybe more. "They're coming from everywhere." The officer paused, then added with a smile, "They look worried." The massive screen showed swarm ships rushing to defend their home. But they moved differently now. Gone was their old confidence. They had learned fear. They had learned that size didn't always matter. They had learned that sometimes the smallest enemy could be the deadliest. "All ships, all species," Walker's voice rang out across the combined fleet. "This is the moment we've trained for." The swarm thought they were the greatest power in the galaxy. Today, we prove them wrong. Today, we show them what happens when the galaxy stands together. The alien council members, watching from their safe distance, saw something they had never imagined possible. Huge ships from gas giant worlds flew beside tiny fast ships from low-gravity planets. Crystalline vessels that could survive in a sun's corona moved in formation with organic ships that could heal themselves. And leading them all were the human ships, smaller than most but moving with a confidence that inspired everyone. First wave, attack pattern thunder, Walker commanded. He had named this tactic after his ship. It was simple but effective. Like humans charging into battle, screaming to show they weren't afraid. The swarm expected their enemies to stay far away and fire long-range weapons. Instead, the Allied fleet split into smaller groups and charged straight at them from different directions. Boarding pods launched by the thousands. Combat teams from 50 different species, each bringing their own special abilities, cut into swarm ships like they were made of paper. Second wave, now, Walker ordered. This group was led by the species that had once hidden underground. They had modified their tunneling technology to work in space, creating holes in the battlefield that ships could pass through, appearing where the swarm least expected them. The swarm tried to adapt, but they faced too many different tactics at once. Crystal warriors reflected their sensor beams. Flying species outmaneuvered them in 3 dimensions. Small, quick aliens sabotaged their engines. And humans led boarding parties that fought their way to the hearts of the largest ships. Their center is breaking, someone shouted. On the screen, Walker watched as the largest concentration of swarm ships began to fall apart. Not just defeated, they were surrendering. The swarm, which had never known fear or defeat, had finally met something stronger than themselves. A galaxy united. Hours later, Walker stood in what had once been the swarm's command center. Around him, representatives from every allied species gathered to witness the end of a threat that had haunted them for generations. The swarm is finished, he announced. Their leaders have surrendered. Their ships are standing down. The galaxy is free. The celebration that followed was unlike anything any species had ever seen. Aliens who had once feared to leave their home systems now danced in space. Species that had hidden underground for generations now flew proudly through the stars. But perhaps the most interesting thing happened a week later. The remaining swarm leaders, now prisoners, asked to speak to Walker. Why did we lose? They asked. We were bigger, stronger, more numerous. Walker looked at them for a long moment. Because you fought alone, he said finally. You thought being the strongest meant you would always win. But you forgot something important. When the galaxy stands together, when every species brings its own strength to the fight, nothing is unbeatable. As Walker walked out of the prison, he smiled. Humans had done more than win a war. They had taught the galaxy how to believe in itself. And that, he knew, would change everything forever.